Score, the podcast. The only show taking you inside the studios of the world's most celebrated composers and musicians.
Yep, I'm Kenny Holmes.
Robert Kraft, phoning in from British Columbia. How about that?
Vancouver? Where are you?
I'm in the ocean off of Vancouver on an island and just having a beautiful end of summer here. But this island is called Score the Podcast Island. It's where old
We've
composers...
been stranded on this island for 6 years.
6 years. In fact, did we complete... How many years now are we doing Score the Podcast? 6?
This is season 5, season finale right here.
Right on.
But we've been doing the show since 2018, so it's been a minute.
Yep.
And we appreciate all of you sticking with us. And we have a tremendous guest for our finale. You've probably heard his name or the film that he's breaking records with in Deadpool and Wolverine, the #1 box office R-rated film of all time. And it's an MCU film, which... Did you ever see that happening, Robert?
I didn't. And I didn't... When I saw Deadpool and Wolverine, I couldn't believe that MCU had that much flavor. How about that? It was really well made, incredibly musical, top to bottom, songs and score. And I don't think we should ignore the fact that at the same time, this composer scored the other #1 film this summer, which is Blake Lively's It Ends With Us. Blake Lively, of course, Mrs. Deadpool. So it all's a little fabulous in the family, and our composer for this episode scored both Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds smash
We're
movies.
talking about Rob Simonsen. He's going to be joining us in just a bit. He's in Iceland, which is another first for the show. Never talked with someone in Iceland while we were talking with them, I don't believe.
I don't think so.
So pretty cool. Before we get to Rob, again, we just want to thank you guys all for listening to the show, watching the show. If you're watching the show, take a screenshot. If you're listening, take a screenshot on your phone and tag us. Let us know that you're listening. We'll share that. And you can watch these episodes on our Epic Clef Media YouTube channel and all of our platforms. We're sharing clips and stuff all the time. So make sure to follow, because we are going to be ramping up for season 6 not too long after this finale. So we're excited to be coming back, and a lot of great films and TV shows coming up in the fall. There's a lot of really promising stuff coming up, and a lot of composers to talk to about that stuff. So stick with us, and you'll be happy. I think you'll be happy. Robert, I saw a movie before we get to Rob called Trap, and this is the latest M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Yeah.
The quick synopsis is a serial killer is being set up. The FBI gets a tip that this serial killer is going to a concert of a famous pop artist, kind of like a Ariana Grande or Taylor Swift type thing. And they know that there's not going to be that many adult males at the show, so the numbers game, let's get them all in there and not let anyone out until we go through everyone and figure out who this killer is. But it was very interesting because most of the movie takes place in an arena where this concert's taking place. And it took me until the end to realize that the pop star artist in the film is M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, who is a, rising star. She's trying to make a name for herself as a pop star. And he kind of used this film as a platform to create a soundtrack. And not only that, but she performs most of the songs during the film on stage. Have you ever heard of something like this? It seems like a pretty cool dad move.
Yeah, if your dad's a major international filmmaker and makes you the star of his next film, I think is it a Nepo baby? A Nepo baby?
Nepo baby.
I mean, I think that hits it.
She also acts in the
Apparently
film,
it's good, too. So...
Yeah, it was a fun, it was one of the more fun M. Night Shyamalan. The last couple ones were for me, but this one, it was a fun ride. And he also makes a cameo as her dad backstage.
He usually shows up in his movies, not unlike Hitchcock. I did one with M. Night Shyamalan called The Happening, where the wind is bad. That's the movie. But cool, Trap, and you also we both are looking forward, I know, to the John Williams picture, which is I guess a documentary about the maestro of maestros.
Yes, it is releasing. I had the info here.
Soon, I hope.
It's being released at AFI Fest.
Oh, that's right.
And we'll have a limited theatrical release on Disney Plus November 1st. It feels like a lot of people want to make this, and there have been little miniature versions or something like that, but this has Amblin, Lucasfilm, and Imagine behind it. So
the seal of approval.
Yeah, this is going to be the ultimate one.
Can't wait. It'll be mind-blowing. It'll be like any documentary on the Beatles where you just, oh my God, that's right. He wrote that too. And so John Williams, for every composer, is Buddha and every other deity wrapped into one. And I can't wait. I really can't wait, because it's an amazing story and just the greatest film composer.
Yeah, long overdue. But I'm glad they're doing it when they are, because there's probably going to be a great long sit down with John, and he tells stories really well. So you don't get a lot of those, especially on camera. He does more, I feel like, more radio interviews than sit down on camera interviews. So hopefully there's some new stories to go through there. And I can't imagine the Spielberg stories that are going to come out
great
in that doc. I hope it's multi-part. I haven't seen if it's just a 90-minute feature, but feels like documentaries are more docu-series now. A 90-minute doc feels like the old way of doing it.
I did see the 3-part series on NSYNC and Backstreet Boys.
Oh, yeah.
And
Dirty Pop.
Dirty Pop.
That was wild.
Just amazing.
There's a lot of good stuff out there.
A lot of good stuff.
But yeah, lots to look forward to. What a summer of films we had. I'm just happy that movies feel like they're worth going to in the theater.
Backstreet Boys.
There's hype.
Yeah,
it's exciting. And speaking of that, coming up in just a second, we're going to be joined by Rob Simonsen, composer of Deadpool and Wolverine, and It Ends With Us. Stick around. We'll be right back. He's the composer of the now highest grossing R-rated movie of all time. He's also the newest member of the MCU as a composer. We got Rob Simonsen on the show for the finale. What's up, Rob?
Hello, everyone.
Rob, are you Deadpool or Wolverine?
Oh man, depends on the time of day, depends on the mood. You know, I probably feel more Deadpool though. It's he's just irreverent and not taking anything too seriously. That's what I try to do.
Love that, and it's fun to have you here. Of course, to talk to you, I have a lot of questions, but the audience should know the unbelievable moment you're having, which is having the 2 top movies in the universe, Deadpool and Wolverine, and then Mrs. Ryan Reynolds across the Cineplex aisle, and It Ends With Us, Blake Lively. And I have to say that I've been listening to both scores, and it's a little amazing to think they're from the same composer. I just got to say it, because I listened to Deadpool last night. Again, I have questions. And then I put on It Ends With Us, and Mrs. Kraft said, "Ooh, that's so pretty. What is that?" I said, "Same guy." Did you score them at the same time? Were they sequential? Were they on top of each other?
I was in London finishing up the mix and the recording. We actually still had a session left, so there was like a week of recording left on Deadpool, and I suddenly get a text from Blake and she sent a little video saying, I'm doing this thing, need a score. Can you deliver it in a week? And I said, I don't think a week, but maybe 3 if we have 3. So that materialized, and yeah, so it was sequential. Was able to kind of finish up Deadpool, but I was going from the dub of Deadpool and going back to the studio at night working on Blake's film. So
In a
it was a little
week?
nutty. Well,
Is that a more ambitious?
it ended up being about a month.
But I mean, the initial pitch, like just hearing that, is that the most ambitious ask you've ever been approached
Yes.
for?
Yeah,
And
it was.
you going into that, regardless of stretching it out to 3 or 4 weeks, it's very clear that they don't have a lot of time. So when you step in to start writing for that, sometimes that's a luxury, right? Because they can't send a lot of notes. There's no time.
Yeah, I mean it worked out, and Blake was she was very clear. She was very fun, and once we kind of hit on something, we moved on. So that I
That's
didn't know
ideal.
how it was going to go down, but yeah, it was ideal, and really the only way that it could have happened. And I
Can
wonder
I
if we would
just
have had 6 more months or something, if it would have turned out any different. I don't know.
Yeah.
Isn't that perfect? I have to wonder. I mean, no interest in dishing, but was there a composer before that or did they just one day wake up and say, "Oh, you know what we need? A score. Call that guy who's doing my husband's movie. Maybe he has time." I mean, how do you end up getting a call with we're in that kind of a pinch? Unless I kind of guessed correctly.
Yeah, I think probably it was a scenario of a last second replacement.
Yeah, and did they know you, the director, and Blake from something else, or was it simply Ryan was bringing home cues from Deadpool, and she said, "Who's that?"
Well, she didn't realize that I had done Age of Adeline, um, which she loved. So once she kind of made the connection that like I did Age of Adeline, and I think there was some my music in the temp of the film that was working really well. And then, I guess Ryan would be just sitting in the living room listening to Deadpool cues, and it was pretty sweet. They're both very sweet and very effusive and complimentary. So I think, yeah, probably my name was just kind of haunting around.
It's kind of great. I mean, it's a little bit of Only in Hollywood and All in the
Yeah,
Family.
you're kind of set
and
up for a Christmas card now at this point, right?
I mean, they do feel
Rob, it's
like
just
friends,
great.
Yeah.
That's so nice, and they both deserve the fabulous success they're having. Of course, it's easy to kind of fan out on both of them because they're just really wonderful, and I'm so glad you're in the mix. Rob, it's really, I know we've talked about a lot of questions for you, but would you remind me, why do I remember correctly that we met at James Newton Howard's?
No,
Or
I've
was
ne
it Michael Dana's?
it might have been at Michael's. Although I think the first time I met you, you were still running things at Fox, and I probably
Yeah,
came in with Michael on something and had a chance to meet
500
you
Days
then.
of Summer.
Yep, way back then. Or before that,
And,
probably even Little Miss Sunshine, right?
oh, shoot.
Because I was his
You're
assistant
absolutely
on
right.
that.
What a great film.
It's so great. Two great films. How amazing. And how I would say that you are living this spectacular now at this moment. I
Well,
mean,
Yeah.
that
Let's get into Deadpool a little bit. Deadpool and Wolverine. I saw something, the way that you reached out, or that you were, I guess, in position for the gig, is you sent Sean Levy a text. Is it as simple as that? Can you explain how you got connected with this project?
Yeah, so it actually does start back with The Spectacular Now, because Sean Levy was the executive producer on that one. And he talks about how much he loved that score and it really stuck with him. And, he's a very present producer and he has great notes. And I've told him this before. I think he's the best note giver in Hollywood. They're just very straight, they're very clear. I understand exactly what he's after, and we make the correction and move on. And so anyway, that process really stuck with him. And then I think, he was looking for something appropriate for us to collaborate on. And then the Atom Project came up, and he called me and he said, "Oh, I hear you doing all these different things. I hear you doing melodic piano stuff and string stuff and cool electronic stuff and sound designy things. And I want to give you a canvas to kind of bring it all together." And that was the Atom Project. And then that was my introduction to Ryan. And Ryan loved what I was doing. So we really kind of formed a good bond. And then when I saw the news that Sean was doing a Deadpool movie, I responded to his post about it on Instagram and, nudged him a little bit.
I think
And
people
then,
assume that these things happen by, this big high level, important professional contact. I mean, I love hearing that the composer texted the director. I just love it. That's how it happened. It's just great. Did Sean immediately say, "You're in," or did he say, "Let me think about it," or
Demo
He said-
this, or yeah.
yeah, he was very positive, and he said, I think he later said, "You were very smart to text me exactly what you texted me, exactly when you did." And, he hit up Ryan, and I think everyone was feeling pretty great, and Atom Project was pretty fresh. So, I got a lot of positive signals, and then was in a little bit of a holding pattern because, they were making a lot of other hires, and they were also getting in with Marvel for the first time. And then, but it was pretty positive from that first text. So I kind of assumed that's what was going to happen. But, anything, it's Hollywood. The sands can shift overnight. And
you
so,
don't say.
yeah. But, yeah, it turned out well.
But then you hit it out of the park, which is the best part of all. I mean, it's just the more I listen. And I also watched the material of the recording sessions and thought it was just so interesting. First of all, that you had Abbey Road set up the long way, and which is the. It took me a minute to kind of figure out why the room looked a certain way, and there are two engineers prefer two ways to set that room up. One is the conductor with his back to the control room. The other is on the side. It's always interesting to me to see that. But I also just really dig the score, even though, when I saw the film, I thought there are a lot of songs. And so score has to compete at some level. And there's a lot of sound effects. So score has to compete at some level. But I think listening just a pure score, particularly that, I don't know what LFG stands for. Maybe I should know.
Come on, Robert. You can say it.
I don't
No,
want to say
no
it.
FCC. Let's fucking go.
Let's fucking go. I thought maybe, but I think that, and I was talking about it earlier. I actually went to the piano, Rob, and sussed out E flat, D flat, G. Am I close? Which is really, it's what you want in life. 3 notes, first of all. Nobody can do that. 3 notes that say, to me, a huge amount, because it's kind of tritone, it's dissonant, it's Deadpool humor. Am I reading too much into it? But when I start to hear it, then you hear it in a very different way, in different cues. I thought, man, what a great theme. Am I over reading into those 3 notes?
No, not at all, actually. It's endearing that you're picking up what I was trying to put in there. I mean, it starts with E flat minor and then goes to D flat major.
That you just explained something to me. Please continue.
Yeah. And then it goes to E flat major. But
It's
sometimes
amazing.
it's going E flat major to B flat minor, or sorry, E flat minor to B flat minor, and then back up to E flat major. Um, and it's a little slippery, like Deadpool. And I think starting with a minor chord gives it a little bit of gravitas, but then it kind of like you get back to the E flat, but now it's in major, like the clouds kind of broke through. Because at the end of the day, it's a superhero. It needs to have that kind of triumph. Um, so yeah, I'm good ears.
I loved it. And you just kind of, I mean, I don't know why I didn't even think of it. It's the minor, it's starting in minor and going to the G natural major of E flat that makes it go, oh, that's memorable. Hey, did you listen to, or does it impact your writing to know that X-Men has a kind of fertile history of scores? I mean, and themes. I mean, there's, I don't know how many I did. Fox did, like the John Powell, the John Ottman, John Frizzell. We went through so many different. Michael Kamen was a big one.
Oh yeah, right.
His,
He did the first one, didn't he?
he actually, yeah. And we went through a lot of iterations, and each one would have a new theme. Does that impact your Wolverine, or is it just start fresh?
It was just start fresh. I actually kept myself from hearing anything or watching those videos. I really didn't want to be influenced even by the newer Deadpool scores, which both are great in their own right. But this was like getting into a new universe for Deadpool, a new universe for Wolverine, and it just felt like there were some hooks in some of these other scores, but I really just felt like I want to give them a theme, and I'd been familiar enough with a lot of those other scores to feel like I don't know that there was like a big statement theme in a lot of them because of the transient nature of who was writing them, So we did end up putting some Logan bits in, which was Sean and Ryan's kind of wish on that because we were referencing Logan's character from the movie Logan. So we use a couple bits from Beltrami's score. But besides that, it really just felt like a fresh start. And so it was kind of cashing in on the fact that, well, a lot of these composers aren't referencing other composers' material, so no reason to. It's not like it's not like Superman. Yeah.
Do you talk to Beltrami about that at all, or is that just like paperwork that's done? Do you guys ever sync up during that period?
No, we didn't. I was curious if we would, but I think one use was like literally just a needle drop license, and then another one was a little bit of the cue kind of starts with his theme.
The best
fighting a cold.
I'm sampling that sneeze and making it into a snare drum. I think we just got a great percussion thing. Why are you in Iceland?
Ferris Bueller
And
style.
at Dustin Halloran's, is that for music or just to chill?
Nah, he's a good buddy,
That's great.
and I've had a trip planned here right before COVID, and obviously had to cancel that. And I've been to Iceland a handful of times, and he lives here now with Herdis, and I was bopping around Europe. My next project doesn't start until later in September, so when I see that I have a window, I go, and I usually go to Europe. But this time I went to Africa, and then I went back home, and then I
Mm,
went to New York for the premieres, and then London, Paris, Switzerland, and now
that's
I'm here.
terrible.
Yeah, it's really
I
rough.
want to know. I want to know when you have a window, just as an artist, do you allow yourself to really space out, walk away from a screen, dream it up, kind of relax, or are you either nervously checking for emails? What would you say your refresh button looks like, just as a creative human being?
Yeah, I mean, I think having novel experiences really helps to fill the well.
Right
Um,
on.
so going to new places in the world, maybe trying to learn a little bit of a new language, getting out into nature, hiking. I mean, I was just hiking in the Swiss Alps, and tomorrow we're going to go to the Highlands in Iceland here, take one of these big ass trucks with huge tires and drive out to a base camp and do some hiking.
That's
So
so
that kind of
great.
stuff. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like I'm kind of always, as soon as I see the window, I'm getting out of the studio because, um, it can be, it's a lot of labor, and you're in the studio for days and weeks and months. And so for me, staying fresh and staying fresh, I don't really focus on taking in new music, to me. I mean, that happens. But for me, it's almost like just letting that whole music brain rest and
Mm.
stimulating myself in other ways. And there's this magic that happens. I mean, it happened when I came into Dustin's. He has this like beautiful little upright piano in his dining room. And I hadn't sat down in maybe a month at this point. And what came out of me, I was like, oh shit, I need to record that. There's a freshness when you come back, and that it's kind of like if you do a lot of pull-ups and you might be struggling to get 10, and then somehow magically you go away for maybe like 2 weeks, and then you come back and you just bang out like 13. I think the brain is kind of similar in that way, being a muscle. So I find that the best thing I can do for my music is let it rest and stimulate myself in other ways.
Love that. Love that.
I wanted to ask you, Rob, about we touched on the LFG cue a little bit, but there's a cat meowing, and when I was watching the film, just like Deadpool, you're in a moment, and then Ryan Reynolds will turn and wink at the camera or do something and completely flip what you're feeling, and the cue does that exact same thing with the cat meow, where it's drumming up and the intensity's brewing, and then a cat meows. I just was curious what inspired that, and is that your cat?
It's not my cat. I don't have any cats, but I tirelessly scoured the internet looking for kitten meows. Um,
Oh,
yeah, I mean, Deadpool subverts expectations, breaks the fourth wall, is very playful, and there was just something about thinking about these superheroes that are immortal. They're stronger than anything. They're impervious, and a kitten is one of the most fragile little creatures, so easily damaged. And also, there's a kind of flirtiness to it almost. And Deadpool is like a very flirty, character. I think technically the character is pan, so he's pansexual.
Mm.
So it's like there's a lot of
Mm.
sexualized humor in Deadpool in the movies, and so for me, it just kind of it helped me to see, I don't know, Deadpool like shaking his butt and winking at the camera or something goofy that he does, which I've learned as I've worked on this is something that everyone loves. I mean, I was going through customs into London, and the customs agent was just like this big, he just looked like a bruiser, bald head, thick, Brit, kind of a little bit of a Cockney accent, tats everywhere. And he's like, what you working on here? And I was like, oh, well. And I usually just say a film score. Actually, I did. And then he asked what film score. And I said Deadpool. And his arms just dropped. And he was like, oh, I fucking love Deadpool. And I think Deadpool gives everyone permission, no matter how kind of masculine you are, to kind of drop the pretense and just be playful. So to me, playfulness in the music was like really the number one thing I was always trying to hit. I was always just trying to have fun and make myself smile. And if I could do that, catch myself off guard, subvert an expectation, then I felt like I was on the right track.
Well, and even just in the opening of the film with Bye 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 and Sync, which, by the way, I went on iTunes and I was looking up the soundtrack stuff, and it's funny what movies do to famous songs, but Like It Needs It, it says Bye 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 from Deadpool and Wolverine on the main track on NSYNC's thing now. And I was like, it reminds me of, when I was a kid, Bohemian Rhapsody was from Wayne's World, but a previous generation knew it as like their stadium anthem or whatever it is. And the impact that those songs can have and on future generations, and it also makes you feel a little bit old. But what I was getting at in the opening is your name is written in blood and guts and brains, I think, in the snow. I was just curious when you first saw that.
Yeah, I mean,
what did you think?
I thought it was awesome. I was like, I don't know the next time that my credit is going to be out of blood splatter, but I mean, it was super fun, and they had that song in there from early on, and I think adding the dance, Deadpool doing the dance, was kind of like a later thing because it was just the fight scene with all of the credits happening. So intercutting him actually doing the dance was just like, it felt great. And I saw it happen when Sean asked me to do the Kate Bush kind of remixes and orchestral versions for Stranger Things. Which I did, which was season 4. Running Up That Hill was a song used in a kind of big moment in season 4, and it really brought Kate Bush to young generations. And,
oh my God! It just changed the trajectory of that career. People never heard that song. I mean, that was, of course, an epic cultural moment. I also, Like a Prayer, I read, is up 800% in streaming.
Was that kind of the breeding ground of doing this with Deadpool, the Stranger Things Kate Bush thing?
Yeah, that's exactly what Sean said. He said, I want you to do with Like a Prayer what you did with Kate Bush. And we did that with the T.I. Jay-Z song as well. They have not allowed that to be released, sadly, but I wove in the Deadpool theme on top of Bring 'Em Out. And so we did that, and then I did 2 versions of Like a Prayer. And if you should try to find Ryan and Sean tell the tale of Madonna, like making them wait.
Oh, wow.
Actually, I don't know if I should say that publicly on the record. Maybe we can strike that. But.
So she wasn't in the room with you in that process, is what you're saying?
She was not in the room, but it was a process to get her on board, and in the end, she was very happy with it, and she, because she had a note, um, and it was a great note, and so we addressed it, um, and then she was very happy with it, and then after the film came out and was doing great, she got behind releasing those versions, so now they're out there in the world, and it's crazy. I mean, I remember the day that the stems got sent to me, and I thought, this is the most valuable thing on my hard drives that I have now. I have the original stems from Like a Prayer, and and it was great. It was great fun. And I was like, not letting myself really ever with this film ever feel crushed by the weight of what something was and how famous something was or how big something is or was. I just, again, was always like, how can I make myself smile?
Well, in
And
some ways, you just nailed what makes that film surprising. I think the British say it best when they say, the film takes the piss out of a lot of very important, here's this Like a Prayer, reverential Madonna song. Oh, we're going to just have fun with it. We're going to put a cat's meow in a superhero theme. There's so much that you go, has Marvel been this clever before? I mean, I was really...
They even took some shots at you, Robert, with the 20th century. There was a number of those in there.
It's unbelievable and funny to me. And of course, a lot of my Fox buds kind of were cheering for that.
yeah.
Honestly, kind of thinking how funny, but I think we're also accustomed to, is this okay? Can you do this? And there's either Sean just went for it or got the permissions that he needed or some version of, I'm going to just do this. But I thought it was really broke ground in some ways with irreverent 101 filmmaking, particularly in the sacred Marvel universe. It was, you want to say, are they allowed to say that in a movie? And they did. You did.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone was hoping that it wouldn't get neutered because it was a Deadpool movie in the Marvel universe, and I mean, there are jokes when they're really ribbing hard on Marvel, and I remember sitting in the dub with Kevin Feige over there, and I was
Right.
like, and he was laughing his head off, and so I think
That's brave.
everyone was behind it. Everyone knew what it was, and I think that it kind of just let the air out, in a good way. Like it let the pressure out, I think, of feeling like, oh, we have to figure out some giant, big, grand thing that's going to be super dramatic and all that stuff. And it's like, actually, I think what people just want is they just want to have fun, especially
Do you
with
think
Deadpool.
do you think there's any sort of foresight on them taking this more adult route? I mean, they've tried to do stuff on when they had the Netflix shows like Daredevil, and now they're moving that to Disney, but there was kind of the adult Marvel universe for television shows. But do you feel like Deadpool was always kind of the only one, but with the success this film had, does it seem like there's maybe an itch for more of this type of stuff?
I mean, I think that it probably, I would imagine it's opening their eyes to
$1
pushing more
billion
into that.
has a funny way of making people think twice about their next project.
Well,
Yeah,
and
so
the whole
yeah.
MCU has grown up. I mean, it's been around long enough now where the kids who first started watching these films are adults or becoming parents potentially. I mean, we're getting to that stage now. So you kind of see these cyclical things where it grows up with the audience.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that a lot of people feel like there's a need for a kind of refreshing take. And and playfulness is a great way to get there. Just help people feel like you don't have to take this stuff so seriously. I mean, Thor Ragnarok is one of my favorite Marvel movies. It feels
Same.
like a little side quest. The score is great. The acting is great. You're laughing the whole time, and I just thought that was that was a great moment where it's just a little side quest, enjoyable movie in this kind of big overarching story that they're telling, and this feels kind of a little bit like that, like a little bit of a side
Totally.
quest.
It feels less intimidating too if you're not someone who has seen every movie and you don't know the timeline. You can step into Deadpool and Wolverine and they do a good job catching you up and
Mhm.
you're but again it's not something where if you haven't seen Captain America Winter Soldier, you have no clue what's going on.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a fun ride. We were talking about the needle drops, and we've had Dave Jordan on the podcast in the past who
Mm.
does an incredible job placing these songs and finding these songs. But I was curious, when you're scoring, are all of the songs already picked and in place? Do you have any say in that? Does Ryan Reynolds have any say in these? Like, do you guys work together on finding some of these songs?
Yeah. I don't know that I ever weighed in too much. You know, there was a lot of songs that were being bandied about and tried in these different scenes. And honestly, I think that a lot of them came from Blake and from Ryan's relationship with Blake, especially this, Avril Lavigne and like things that kind of speak to millennial women. Um, and I think that Blake is a huge music fan. I mean, she is very knowledgeable, like deeply knowledgeable about music. She's a score buff. She loves uh, she loves film score. She listens to it a lot, and so I think that their musical life at home. I think, and finding joy in these songs and having moments where somebody puts on a song and it's at a dinner party and suddenly like you've got five girls dancing around, five millennial women dancing around the room, and maybe it's like, yes, this is what we need in there. And so but I think that it's pretty democratic, so I think these song trials come from a lot of different areas.
Yeah.
No doubt Dave, the editors, the music editor, um, but Ryan's really got his finger on the pulse with songs, and I think a lot of that comes from Blake as well.
It's so nicely collaborative to hear this, that it's not top down and this is the way it's going to go, but that there's that kind of participation. Kenny, you had an interesting question we talked about earlier before this. I'd love to know.
Yeah. Well, it's not that profound of a question, but when you've done so many great projects with Ghostbusters and big franchises, but the MCU, I'm just curious, have you noticed a difference? What do you think scoring a film in this universe does moving forward with your career? Just notoriety. I mean, Ryan Reynolds tweeted your name out to his following saying that you rocked it. I mean, that has to have some kind of impact for you as a composer.
I definitely have a few more Instagram followers.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I try to, I don't even try. I think I tend to just not think too much about that stuff. I don't really have any control over who might hear something, or rather like how they feel about it. So I'm just, taking a lesson actually from Deadpool because there was not a single day of working on that film that was not fun. Even when it was like
Mm.
pulling all-nighters and we were getting into the weeds on things, and I would spend days on some cue and present it, and then maybe it was in the film, then it was out of the film, then it was back in the film. And I think it's kind of like surfing. And if I'm having fun, then like that's really the most important thing. And I think a lot about what Quincy Jones said. Where the interviews that he did on Thriller, the 25th anniversary maybe, or the
Mm-hmm.
35th. And he says the producer's job is to know what songs should go on a record and not. And the only way to know is like the goosebumps and all the other things that everybody has. So I think I'm just gonna follow what seems fun and what gives me goosebumps, and what seems interesting and stimulating. Um, so I don't know, Kevin Feige certainly, and Lou D'Esposito and Wendy Jacobson, the Marvel team, they were not short on compliments, but you know, what it's going to do for my career, I don't know. I'm just gonna wade out into it and see what comes.
So healthy,
Let it
dude.
happen.
It may
Well,
you.
there's a lot of trust put in you. I mean, obviously you're writing an incredible score and doing the things that a composer does, but on a project at this level, the secrecy, the all of the things that go with being a part of these projects, we've heard those stories. Was it a different experience? Just the level of, I mean, was there people outside your door with guns? I mean, it seems like these guys treat these films with crazy amount of security.
I'd kind of gone through it with Apple because I did a lot of work for Apple and some product launches for Apple. So I
Mm.
did have a security person come out and kind of root through me and my setup. So that was I kind of got set
Wow.
up at that point, and then the Marvel security guy got me on the phone when you're getting onboarded, and I kind of told him the systems that we had set up, and he was like, "You're fine."
Oh,
Um,
good.
and
Set
they
to
have,
go.
I think they have a lot of systems in place when uh, the last few years is they've like really ramped up the content. They've ramped up the infrastructure of how they create things. But on this one, it was just me and Sean and Ryan. And we were
Nice.
just trying to make ourselves feel it and laugh and either say like, we were just always trying to say like, fuck yeah. And if we could get there,
LFG, baby.
yeah.
Hey, Rob, before we let you go, you mentioned earlier in the conversation that you're taking a break until you start something in September. Are you at liberty to tell us what that is, or is it under the cloak of secrecy?
Well, it's on my IMDb, so I think it's out there.
Hi,
Is it
upcoming
Elio?
Elio?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Pixar film.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful, man, because it also, just from the 30,000 foot view, to go from what you've just done, the romance and the MCU, to an animated film, I would say that you're having a dream moment. You're getting to score. I mean, for all those fans out there, how wonderful and how creative to get to score these different kinds of films and look inside yourself to find different resources or solutions. So it's not always, oh, another rom-com. Okay, here are my rom-com tricks. Oh, it's another MCU. Okay, here are my action tricks. It's really, I think it's exciting just creatively. I don't know, unless
Well,
I'm the only person here who doesn't know what Elio is about. Do we all know this? And I just don't know. What is it?
I think well, I don't know what's out there actually. Um, it's about a little boy that goes to space.
Okay,
So
that's oh, you know what? That is the elevator pitch of life. Who can't think?
yeah.
That's interesting.
it's kind of
Um,
crazy. My in-laws, my father-in-law is Wally, and my brother-in-law is Elio.
Whoa.
So I don't know who's spying on. And I feel like there's a character who has my mother-in-law's name in Wally, which is it's just bizarre
and
that
today
these
is your
two.
anniversary, if I'm
It
not
is my
mistaken.
anniversary, yeah.
See?
So
And I think that's a perfect and romantic and
yes,
appropriate note to let Rob get on his big wheeler to go out to the glaciers. Be careful. Somebody just was in a glacier accident
Ugh,
a couple days
ugh.
ago. So pick your
ugh.
pick your glaciers wisely.
Yeah, be careful.
Rob,
Yeah.
I know just having been kind of on the sidelines watching it from, if it was 500 Days of Summer or Little Miss Sunshine, when it's really curious to see having done this for a minute, which of those assistants you go, hey, yeah, man, thanks. Could you get me no, Earl Grey, not the English breakfast. At one point, you're that guy.
Yeah.
And then at one point, you're scoring Deadpool. And it's like, wow, I didn't realize I was next to this kind of, future draft pick. And of course, I knew the minute I met you, invest in this guy. But others might not have.
Robert bought a lot of stock.
I bought a lot of stock. But Rob, it's just exciting to see and kind of total
it's awesome, man.
Pride in seeing what's going on, and I just want you to enjoy Iceland. That's my wish for you today, and everything else that comes forward. You said earlier in this conversation, we can't control, and I thought, yeah, guess what? Get ready for Surprises 101 every day for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this could be the pinnacle moment of your life, so enjoy today, because Elio goes, belly up, and then it's like, Rob, who? I'm not saying, I'm just saying.
Oh, well, thanks for that future outlook.
Thanks, man. I thought I'd just give you a kind of that's the pep talk,
Rob, Elio is Oscar bound coming from that, okay?
Then
Thanks,
Let's balance out the universe here. I don't know, Robert.
The flip
just put some
side
bad
is
juju
you're going to
in
be
it.
competing with yourself at one of these Oscars, and we know that that's ahead for you.
Next year, you got 3 movies out on the same weekend. That's the goal,
Unbelievable.
right?
Anyhow,
Well,
Rob,
thanks,
it is
guys.
amazing to chat with you, and I'm just excited for what's coming next.
Thank you, guys. I much appreciated.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and thanks again for coming on. This was the season finale of Score the Podcast. Thank you for listening. For those of you out there or watching, we're on YouTube now too. You can follow us on all the social platforms at Score Movie on Instagram, Score the Podcast on TikTok and Twitter, and Score a Film Music Documentary on Facebook. We'll be back for another season. And Rob, all the best, man. Congratulations on Deadpool and Wolverine and all the future stuff, man. We love to see it.
Thanks, guys.